She walked into a parking garage with someone she knew, a man she had gone to high school with. The cameras captured both of them entering, but minutes later, only one of them would ever be seen again. Her car was still parked there. Her phone went silent, and for years, her family would be left asking one painful question: what happened to Christina Morris inside that garage?
She went out for Labor Day weekend. She laughed with friends. She walked through a busy entertainment area in Plano, Texas. She was young, full of life, and by all appearances, she was just ending a normal night out. But at 3:55 in the morning, Christina Morris was seen on surveillance footage, walking into a parking garage with a man she knew. Only one of them would ever be seen leaving. And for years, one question haunted her family, her friends, investigators, and thousands of people across America. What happened to Christina Morris inside that parking garage? Before we begin, let's remember something very important. Christina was not just a missing person case. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a graduate, a creative young woman with dreams, plans, and people who loved her deeply. This is the story of Christina Morris, the night she disappeared, the evidence that followed, and the heartbreaking truth that came years later. Christina Marie Morris was 23 years old in 2014. She was from the North Texas area and had graduated from the University of Texas at Dallas with a marketing degree. She was described by loved ones as creative, fun, stylish, and full of energy. She loved photography. She loved the color purple. She had a unique personality that made people remember her. At that age, Christina was in that chapter of life where everything still feels open. Career, love, friendship, independence, dreams, all of it is still being built. On Friday, August 29th, 2014, Christina went out with friends at the Shops at Legacy in Plano, Texas. If you are familiar with the area, the Shops at Legacy is not some hidden back road. It is a busy place, with restaurants, bars, apartments, parking garages, and nightlife. That is part of what makes this case so chilling. Christina did not vanish from the middle of nowhere. She vanished in a place filled with lights, buildings, cameras, cars, and people. The night started like many holiday weekends do. A group of friends gathered. Some had known each other from high school. They drank, moved between bars, talked, and spent time together. Nothing at the beginning of the night seemed like it would become the beginning of a national true crime story. But as the night got later, the group began to separate. By the early morning hours of August 30th, Christina was ready to head back to her car. That is when she was seen walking with Enrique Arochi. Enrique was not a stranger who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He and Christina had known each other from high school. That detail matters, because many people think danger always looks like a stranger in the dark. But in this case, the person last seen walking with Christina was someone she knew. Surveillance footage showed Christina and Enrique walking into a parking garage together. That moment would become one of the most important pieces of the entire case. Imagine watching that footage as a family member. You see someone you love walking. She is alive. She is moving. She is right there on camera. And then, nothing. No footage of her driving away. No call saying she got home. No message explaining where she was. No Christina. Her silver Toyota Celica was later found still parked in the same area. That detail raised a terrifying question. If Christina went to the garage to get her car, why was her car still there? Where did she go? And who knew the answer? At first, the situation may have felt confusing. Adults go out, phones die, plans change. Sometimes people stay with friends or sleep somewhere else. But Christina's silence did not feel normal to the people who knew her. Days passed, and the fear grew stronger. On September 2nd, 2014, Christina was reported missing. Her family began living the nightmare that every parent fears. They searched. They shared her picture. They begged for information. Friends, relatives, and volunteers came together under one mission: find Christina. Posters went up. Social media posts spread. Searchers walked through fields, wooded areas, and open land, hoping for any clue. But the deeper investigators looked, the more attention turned to the last person seen with her, Enrique Arochi. When questioned, Arochi said he had nothing to do with Christina's disappearance. He maintained that Christina had never been in his car. But investigators were not only listening to what he said, they were comparing his words to surveillance footage, physical evidence, and the timeline. And that is where the story began to crack. According to reports, Arochi told police he did not park in the same garage as Christina. But surveillance video showed his car leaving that same garage shortly after Christina and Arochi were seen walking in. That is a major turning point. Because if Christina walked into the garage with him, and her own car never left, but his car did leave, investigators had to ask, was Christina inside his vehicle? Arochi denied it. But then came another detail. Hours after Christina disappeared, surveillance footage reportedly showed Arochi cleaning parts of his car at a Kroger in Allen, Texas. Think about that timing. Christina was last seen around 3:55 in the morning. Later that same morning, Arochi was seen cleaning his car. To investigators, that was not just a strange coincidence. It was a moment that demanded explanation. Then came one of the strongest pieces of evidence in the case. Christina's DNA was found in the trunk area of Arochi's car. For a person who claimed Christina had never been in his car, that discovery became devastating. The case was still difficult because Christina had not been found. There was no body at the time. There was no confession. There was no clear public answer about exactly what happened inside that garage or after. But prosecutors built a case around the timeline, the surveillance footage, the contradictions, and the DNA evidence. In December 2014, Enrique Arochi was arrested and charged with aggravated kidnapping. For Christina's family, this did not end the pain, because even with an arrest, they still did not have Christina. They still did not know where she was. That is one of the cruelest parts of this case. The legal system could move forward, but the family was still trapped in uncertainty. Every day without Christina meant another day of wondering. Was she somewhere nearby? Had someone moved her? Would they ever be able to bring her home? The search did not stop. Christina's family became known for their determination. They did not quietly disappear from public view. They kept her name alive. They kept asking for answers. They kept reminding the world that Christina mattered. And while the public followed the investigation, the court case continued. In 2016, the trial against Enrique Arochi began. The prosecution argued that Christina had been kidnapped. They pointed to the surveillance footage. They pointed to Arochi's changing statements. They pointed to his car. They pointed to Christina's DNA. The defense challenged the case and argued there was not enough evidence. But after hearing the evidence, a Collin County jury convicted Enrique Arochi of aggravated kidnapping in Christina Morris's disappearance. Then came sentencing. A judge sentenced Arochi to life in prison. But even after that sentence, the case still felt unfinished, because Christina was still missing. Her family had a conviction, but not closure. Her loved ones could say someone was held responsible for kidnapping her, but they still could not lay her to rest. For years, Christina's family lived in that painful space between justice and unanswered questions. Then, in March 2018, nearly 4 years after Christina disappeared, construction workers were clearing land in Anna, Texas, north of Plano. During that work, human remains were found in a wooded area. Soon after, the remains were identified as Christina Morris. The search was over, but the grief became real in a new way. For years, her family had hoped for answers. They had searched with courage. They had spoken her name again and again. And now, The news they feared had finally come. Christina was not coming home alive. Her mother publicly described the moment as the worst day of their lives. Family members thanked the volunteers, law enforcement, media, and strangers who had helped them across the years. That detail is important because cases like this are not solved or remembered by one person alone. They are carried by families who refuse to give up. They are supported by communities that keep looking. They are pushed forward by investigators who follow evidence, even when the case is difficult. And they are remembered by people who choose not to let a victim become only a headline. So what makes Christina Morris's case so haunting? It is not only that she disappeared, it is where she disappeared. A parking garage, a place so many Americans use without thinking. After dinner, after work, after a movie, after a night out with friends. It is the kind of place where you tell yourself, I'm almost to my car. I'm almost safe. But Christina's case reminds us that the final few minutes of a night can be the most dangerous. It also reminds us that danger does not always arrive as a stranger. Sometimes the person walking beside you is someone you recognize, and that is what makes the footage so difficult to think about. Christina was not running. She was not screaming. She was walking with someone she knew. Then she vanished. For true crime viewers, it is easy to focus only on the mystery, the surveillance, the DNA, the contradiction, the trial. But behind every piece of evidence was a family waiting for their girl. Every search party was a family refusing to accept silence. Every poster was a message to the world. Christina is loved. Christina is missing. Christina deserves to be found. And even after her remains were discovered, her story continued to matter. Because the meaning of Christina's case is not just fear, it is awareness. Tell someone where you are going. Do not walk alone late at night when you can avoid it. Stay with your friends until everyone is safely in their car. Pay attention when someone's story changes. And when a person goes missing, do not assume they simply left. Time matters. Details matter. Cameras matter. DNA matters. And people speaking up can matter more than they know. Christina Morris's story began as a night out with friends. It became a search, then an investigation, then a courtroom battle, then a family's long wait for the answer they never wanted. Christina was 23 years old. She had dreams. She had a future. She had people who loved her. Then a courtroom battle. Then a family's long wait for the answer they never wanted. Christina was 23 years old. She had dreams. She had a future. She had people who loved her. And one early morning in Plano, Texas, she walked into a parking garage and never walked back out. The man last seen with her, Enrique Arochi, was convicted of aggravated kidnapping and sentenced to life in prison. But for Christina's family, the most powerful part of this story has never been the criminal. It has always been Christina, her name, her face, her life, her memory. So as we end this story, remember her not only as a missing person case and not only as a victim. Remember Christina Morris as a young woman whose family fought for her when she could no longer fight for herself. And remember this: sometimes the most important evidence is not loud. It is a few seconds of video. A car that should have left but didn't. A story that doesn't match the footage. A trace of DNA where someone said it could never be. And a family that never stopped asking the question, where is Christina? May Christina Morris be remembered with dignity, with compassion, and with the truth.